Hey there everyone, AJ back again for the mighty gluestick channel. I make videos about Dungeons & Dragons lore full time and have a huge collection of videos for you to binge watch to your heart's content. I upload 2 new videos per week with a live stream each week as well. If you like what I do, please consider becoming a member of the channel by clicking the join button down below or backing me on Subscribestar or Patreon. You can get access to all the scripts I write for these vids if you prefer to read what I'm saying there. I also have a Discord server with an active community, and of course, subscribe to the channel if you think I've earned your subscription. Gelugons, so-called ice devils, are one of the more bizarre devil forms. They look like a cross between a devilish humanoid crossed with a praying mantis insect with lean and tremendously strong armoured limbs and a thick segmented torso with a long and mobile tail. The lack of normal humanoid expressions on the Gelugons' insectoid face leads some to mistakenly assume this is a more monstrous and lower tier devil, but this is far from the truth, and the role these beings have in the Nine Hells, and really in active fiendish military operations across the multiverse, is quite complex. We need to delve deeply into the lore of these devils, as there is much more to them than meets the eye, so sit back, grab a beverage, we're about to get deeply nerdy. Historically, Gelugons first appeared in Dungeons & Dragons 1st Edition's Core Monster Manual, which has this to say about them. The frigid 8th plane of Hell is populated in the main with ice devils. There are greater devils in every sense of the word, preferring to attack and torment victims by means of their claws, mandibles, and tails. About a quarter of them all carry spears, great spears that inflict 2d6 hit points damage and numb with cold the creature thus struck half the time. Being greater devils, they have personal names. Ice devils can do any of the following at will: cast Fly, Wall of Ice, Detect Magic, Detect Invisible, Polymorph Self, or gate in 2 Bone Devils or another Ice Devil. Once per day, an Ice Devil can also cause an Ice Storm. These creatures have Ultra Vision out to 60 feet, are able to regenerate 1 hit point per melee round, have very high strength, and they radiate fear in a 100-foot radius. I should mention that in earlier editions of Dungeons & Dragons, the range of different vision styles of creatures was wider. So with active ultraviolet vision or ultravision, the creature's eyes emitted UV light, and it could see this as though it was shining its own flashlight all the time. These days we just say the creature can see through magical and natural darkness, but we lost an added aspect of that, which is that in the early days of the game, magic was said to emit small amounts of UV light, which meant that creatures with ultravision could see enchanted areas, effects, and objects as though they were literally illuminated for them. So we can say that ice devils can see magic, including a glow around things that have been concealed or altered by magic. In 5th edition, there's a slight nod to this lore by giving the ice devils advantage against spells and magical effects, which usually works to halve incoming damage. It doesn't matter if the Gelugon can see the magic coming or not, but I think it misses a lot of the roleplay opportunity for a creature that can literally see the glow of magic. Gelugons have always predominantly occupied Cania, that is the home turf, but can be found throughout the Nine Hells. There's a great encounter with an ice devil described in 3.5 edition's Fiendish Codex 2, Tyrant of the Nine Hells, that is titled The Sculptor, although this occurs in the 5th layer, Stygia, also a desolate frozen hell. A 12-foot tall insectoid being as blue and white as the ice itself is visible from miles away across a flat expanse of iceberg. It seems to be constructing a peculiar monolith from some frozen pink-red globes.
"Approach, mortals, and behold my work,"
the creature says in a grand tone, when not travelling to various material plane worlds to engage foolish mortals in Faustian pacts. Hartura, the ice devil, achieves inner calm through its artistic endeavours. Here, on a blasted and desolate patch of Stygian ice, the devil eternally builds, alters, and rebuilds a teetering, multi-armed obelisk from frozen blocks. Up close, these blocks are identifiable as icy heads of dozens of dead humanoids. Whenever Hartura claims a soul, it takes its victim's head, which it spirits back to Baator. The sculpture, which serves as a physical reminder of the devil's accomplishments, is its greatest pride and joy. Hartura anxiously urges any visitor, devil or mortal, to comment on the masterpiece. The Ice Devil is interested only in sincere critiques that include suggestions on ways to improve its sculpture, that is, to make it still grander and more terrifying. Thus, it brushes aside non-committal answers and politely thanks those who provide useful artistic comments, as long as they're phrased in a constructive manner. If rudely criticised, the Ice Devil flies into an immediate killing rage. Kinder critics fare only slightly better. Hartura lets them choose whether they be killed by spear or by its claws. My suggestion is take a little time to describe just how sick and twisted this sculpture really is, but also impress on the players that it's not simply a trap. There is a chance to actually talk to this devil, who is essentially taking a break to practice its hobby. This is also one of the rare opportunities to roleplay a kind of odd ice devil for the players and have some fun with it. Ranging from 10.5 to over 12 feet tall, insectoid and just thoroughly dangerous looking, Gelugons are one of the most physically imposing devil forms. They look every bit like they could happily snatch you up and eat you at any second, and to be fair, they will. However, they are highly experienced senior devils who, as mentioned, have names. They are well known, they have distinct style and reputation. Each one of them has a certain celebrity amongst devils. Don't think of their praying mantis, bug-eyed insectoid face as an expressionless monster. Think of it as a Mandalorian helmet, as a badge of honour and a clear statement to other devils and their victims that they face an elite member of the Baatorian species. Gelugons have a society of their own within that of the rest of the devils' hierarchy, and they are highly respected for their skills and experience. Don't think of those thin exoskeletal arms as less agile. Think of the speed and precision of a robot. Don't think of those compound eyes as blurry vision of an insect. Think of a massive sensor scopes that they have locked into a targeting computer. They see the world as a tactical heads-up display. In hand-to-hand combat, Gelugons' primary weapons is a long, beefy and wickedly barbed tail that has the advantage of having a 10-foot reach. All their attacks are +10 to hit and deliver deadly cold on top of their other damage inflicted. In the case of the tail, this is a bludgeoning damage. Their spikes in 5th edition have been greatly reduced in the artwork, and while in older editions it was the tail that was the part of the body that radiated extreme cold, now it is their entire body, so their bite and claw attacks also deliver 3d6 additional cold damage. Again, in 5th edition, they've dropped the cold's ability to incapacitate victims from their physical strikes, which makes it a much less dangerous fight. So if you want to include the bone-numbing supernatural cold, give the tail attack the exact same effect as the spear attack I'm about to mention. The bite does 2d6 plus 5 piercing damage, the claws do 2d4 plus 5 slashing damage, so they cover all the bases with damage types. They list the special spear attack as an optional sidebar in 5th edition. The Gelugon switches to combat style using the spear and tail each round to make 10-foot reach attacks, making it a much more difficult fight because they can strike you from further away. The spear is +10 to hit as well, does 2d8 plus 5 piercing damage plus 3d6 cold damage if the target is a creature. It must succeed on a DC 15 Constitution saving throw, or for 1 minute its speed is reduced by 10 feet. It can take either an action or a bonus action on each of its turns, not both, and it can't take reactions, so it's numbed and cold and slowed. The target can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on itself on a success. So I'm not sure why they've avoided just using the stunned condition and went for the sort of weird half-assed version that they've got there. I say go full stunned and let the players learn to keep their distance. They have retained the Ice Devil's ability to create an ice wall. It is limited to needing a roll of 6 on a 6-sided die at the start of the Ice Devil's turn to recharge the power once it's been used for the first time. It magically forms an opaque wall of ice on a solid surface it can see within 60 feet of it. The wall is 1 foot thick and up to 30 feet long and 10 feet high, or it's a hemispherical dome up to 20 feet in diameter. When the wall appears, each creature in its space is pushed out of it by the shortest route. The creature chooses which side of the wall to end up on unless the creature is incapacitated, in which case the Ice Devil makes that choice. The creature takes a DC 17 dexterity saving throw, taking 10 d6 cold damage on the failed save or half as much damage on a successful one. The wall lasts for 1 minute or until the devil is incapacitated or dies. The wall can be damaged and breached, it's just made of ice. Each 10-foot section has an AC 5 and 30 hit points, vulnerability to fire, of course, and immunity to cold, acid, necrotic, poison, and psychic damage. If the section is destroyed, it leaves behind a sheet of frigid air in the space the wall occupied, as the devil's force of cold is still emanating there. Whenever a creature finishes moving through the frigid air in a turn, willingly or otherwise, the creature must make a 1 DC 17 Constitution saving throw, taking 5d6 cold damage on a failed save, or half as much damage on a successful one. The frigid air dissipates when the rest of the wall vanishes. Now, I would rule if you're in a situation where there is absolutely no water, say they're on the plane of fire or something like that, that frigid effect is all that the wall can manage, but it's still significant. So, yeah, think about it. Also, if you're facing a large group of Gelugons, which is quite often the case if you happen to find yourself on Stygia or Cania, particularly Cania, then the ability of them to recharge on a 1d6 multipliers. So in any large group of them, you work out the average of number 6 rolls on a d6 for that group of Gelugons, and you're going to have a number of ice walls that can be generated every single round. So think of that. So clearly, there is an opportunity for a Gelugon to make use of various dangers of a frozen environment. Its ability to manipulate ice and its wicked reach attacks and speed, as it covers 40 feet per round of normal movement. And I think it could easily climb the ice and dash around, creating barriers, dividing groups of enemies, and taking them out with ferocious cold. Gelugons have a natural armor class of 18 and from 95 to 266 hit points, with an average of 180. That's pretty strong for a soldier. They are tough, yes, but they are commanders of other devils, and you should really pair them up with other devil types and certainly have them work smoothly together in disciplined groups when they're in other planes. When they're on Cania, it will be including other ice devils, and also creatures native to the frozen layers of the Nine Hells, such as Hellcats. The Cragcat stat block from the Rime of the Frost Maiden is perfect for these pack hunting monsters that stir up a whirlwind of obscuring snow and wind as they charge in for an attack, which the ice devils see right through without any problem at all, and of course they can tame and guide Hellcats to their heart's content. There are many horrific creatures native to the frozen realms of Baator, but more on that in a moment. Gelugons, and this is a fairly important point, will try to avoid fighting anyone in Baator if they have a good chance of losing against them and being killed, because they know that death on their home planes is permanent, or at least extremely costly, and they are so close to being at the top of the ladder of ambition in the Nine Hells, second only to Pit Fiends. And by close, I mean it's beyond mortal comprehension what they have to do to get there. We'll talk about that as well. So if player characters engage them in combat in Baator, they will probably have a way to transport the fight to another plane, or at least a temporary demi-plane created by magic. Creating a dimensional space inside Baator still counts as if they die inside it, and will be transported back to Baator and reincarnate once again. They may even activate some sort of escape contingency like that if battle turns sour, so they may have a scroll or magic item on them that will do the trick. Even a portable hole counts as an extra dimensional space, and they're fairly common. So be sure to tell your players I say hi when you pull that trick on them. If they die inside that dimensional space or on another plane, they devolve into a puddle of foamy, stinking ooze over a period of 3 to 9 minutes. Whether or not its residue is disturbed, a slain devil returns to Baator 99 years later in its original form at full hit points. This method of transport leaves behind any physical possessions the devil might have carried with him to that plane of existence, including magic items and treasure, even if they originated in Baator. The Gelugons and other greater devils don't really put much stock in treasure and stuff. They are quick to abandon it because it's easily acquired over their immensely long lifespans. Depending on the nature of its defeat, the devil might experience no repercussions back in the Nine Hells, or it might face demotion or failure. Gelugons will most certainly lose a lot of assets and reputation. They will be reduced down in their own culture and will probably not be demoted automatically to a lesser devil form, but the loss is severe, and we'll talk about why. So killing a Gelugon, while uneventful for 99 years, will be something of a problem a century later if that character is still alive, because the Gelugon will definitely want to take revenge. Again, keep in mind that the higher the rank of the devil, the more important it is to add unique touches to their character. And one aspect in which the plane of Baator they call home, and which archdevil they are most associated with can influence them, would be traits that are similar to the archdevil. In the case of Gelugons, they are the only devils who are native to Cania, well, with a few exceptions of unique ones, but they are the most common devil type found there and will enjoy the freezing cold temperatures, which is why they also enjoy Stygia However, there are more complexities to this devil kind. A regiment of Gelugon soldiers are stationed on iceflow rafts in order to defend the ice prison of Levistus. There are whole forces of Gelugons who are both troops and commanders, which is slightly unusual for devils, but more common for them and their complex social structure. Within that culture, they seek promotion with a single-minded drive that is beyond mortal comprehension. According to the Planescape Monstrous Compendium Appendix and Faces of Evil the Fiends, within Nessus lies Asmodeus' super fortress Malshim, which can be reached only through one portal leading from the bottom of a deep, super cold pit in Cania. This icy pit is a military operation of stupendous scope, run solely by the Gelugon, who defend the final gateway to Nessus, the ninth circle of Baator. They number 9,999 guards strong. No Pit Fiends command this force, but are obligated by pacts with Asmodeus himself to come to the Gelugons' defence if ever needed. This independent military power would normally greatly concern the top generals of Hell, but the Pit Fiends know a lot about just how rigid the requirements are for Gelugon promotion and how ironclad the discipline is within their ranks. For example, it takes 777 years of consecutive service without making a single mistake to even make it to the list of candidates for promotion within Gelugon ranks, and it is common for them to have to repeat this qualification process over 9 times. That is close to 7,000 years before they've even got a chance of getting to Pit Fiend. If that sounds tough, the promotion process is on another level entirely. The Gelugon that finally earns their promotion and chooses to go through with it is subjected to the raging hellfire of the Pit of Flame, experiencing 1001 days of excruciating agony. That's over 3 years before being reborn finally as a Pit Fiend. The intense cold that emanates from the Gelugons comes from the heart of Cania itself. They're also immeasurably cold-hearted. They have no pity for weaker beings than themselves, and thanks to the extreme rigours of their environment and their society, that's just the way they are. So while I often refer to them as being generals, the Pit Fiends don't leave the Ice Devils in charge of legions of lesser devils, because the Ice Devils just throw them at tasks like expendable cannon fodder. The Ice Devils instead command other legions of their own, perfecting their combat tactics and improving their already formidable skills. And there have been some remarkable experiments that have been performed to perfect themselves, resulting in 2 types of variant Ice Devils that are worthy of mention. One is recognizable by the intense blue of their exoskeleton. The other is distinct in their extra set of antennae on the top of their head and their almost transparent exoskeleton. The first are super cold Gelugons that have an aura of stunning cold which affects those within range as though they were struck by the devil's barbed spears. And the others are less cold than the average Gelugon but have resistance to all lightning damage. The super cold Ice Devils are devastating against demons who are not typically immune to cold, just have resistance to it. And of course they're devastating to mortals as well. Within Cania there is a long, slow, cold war going on between the native Ice Devil and the predominantly Horned Devil legions loyal to Mephistopheles, who has taken over a large section of the plane and forced the Gelugons to more of the fringe territories further from the region where the ice pit and the portal to Nessus is located, which you could say is the central area of import in this endless plane. Mephistopheles doesn't mess with the portal legions of the ice pit, but his obsession with research and creating a new kind of hellfire has created quite a situation in Cania, one the Horned Devils and even Pit Fiends have been quick to take advantage over. Who knows? It could result in an all-out open civil war on Asmodeus' doorstep, which of course he would be the instigator and ultimate benefactor of, such is the way of the 9 hells. Not all Ice Devils are against Mephistopheles, of course. Yogar is an Ice Devil wizard responsible for the upkeep of Mephistopheles' Frost Garden. The sarcastic Gelugon gardener continually blasts the sculpted plants with a cone of cold spells to prevent the city of Mephistar's strange heat from melting them. Meanwhile, on the outskirts, the rebel Tuncheth is an angry and scheming Ice Devil devoted to restoring the Gelugons to their former position of Mephistopheles' favoured servitors. His attempts to disrupt Horned Devil plans consists of casting them in the light of bumbling incompetence whenever he can, as well as efforts to discredit the powerful Pit Fiend called Quagrem, one of Mephistopheles' key researchers in the Hellfire Project, by sending agents to discover or even plant false evidence of treachery, though Mephistopheles has yet to take the bait seriously. Chincheth is also in charge of developing a theoretical form of frost magic known as the Plume in order to end Mephistopheles' fixation on hellfire, which so many Gelugons find foreign and distasteful to the frigid perfection of Cania. Meanwhile, back on the prime material plane, Gelugons routinely make attempts to convert mass amounts of souls to the devotion to lawful evil, and at least one attempt has been recently made to conquer the world of Toril, in 1366 DR, in fact, by the ice devil Vrisa, who arrived via a portal within the Great Glacier but was ultimately thwarted by the Harper Ranger named Martine and a former paladin named Wilhelm. A little more about venturing into Cania. Consulting the Manual of the Planes, among other tomes, Cania is a plane of hardship and misery steeped in extreme danger and mystery, as well as the Pit, the location of the portal to Nessus, and the city of Mephistopheles, home of Mephistopheles and his enormous research prisons. There are ancient and weird places which may only be known to the oldest Gelugons. In fact, the Gelugons' true activities may be far more complex and secretive than any outside of the Nine Hells will ever know. The plane itself is a frozen hell in every sense of the word. The layer is an ever-changing chaos of moving glaciers and icebergs that drift as fast as a running person, constantly colliding with one another with surrounding mountains and enormous sizes of masses, snow avalanches, flying bits of rock and ice with common violent storms. The weather is dominated by snowstorms that howl with incessant winds. Thin layers of accumulated snow often hide deep crevasses that would engulf incautious explorers, and they can pop up anywhere. Cania averages temperatures that dipped to minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit or minus 51 degrees Celsius, which is certainly colder than Stygia and has a knack of sapping the heat out of anyone not wearing enchanted clothing. The deadliness of the location becomes more apparent as crashing ice shatters, revealing frozen corpses, along with much stranger and spooky things that seem to fill one glacier or the next deep in the ice. The ice is constantly moving, so forming shelters, making igloos and things like that is almost impossible, so it's a matter of being almost constantly exposed to deep, bone-chilling wind chill. Some of the shapes within the ice seem to be frozen in the midst of whatever they were doing, including battling archons and divas who are fighting some sort of unknown spined creatures about the structures of dark alien cities, many slowly getting grounded to dust under the megatons of ice. So there may be wandering aberrations that can survive the cold, as well as fiendish ice trolls, the occasional undead and a few imps, but mostly Gelugons, and horrors from somewhere, sometime in the distant past. According to the Guide to Hell, Kintyre, an enormous uninhabited city of strange architecture that was buried deep under the ice, is still largely a mystery. There is a whole army of celestials frozen mid-battle within the ice, along with abominations locked away in vaults and prisons secured under miles of ice for eons. Of note is also Mephistopheles' second-in-command, a Duke of Hell and a unique Pit Fiend who happens to retain some features of an ice devil, such as a long tail and skin that is more brown than red, named Hutijin. He is particularly short-tempered and has no patience whatsoever for the foolish meddling of mortals whom, as far as he's concerned, serve no purpose other than being vessels that hold the souls of future devils he can command. He is, interestingly, unusually loyal to Mephistopheles, despite commanding a military force large enough to challenge the Archduke, yet he seems to have no desire to do so. Please hit the like button if you made it this far. Subscribe if you like what I do. Check out my Subscribestar or Patreon for all the links for the full scripts for these videos. Buy some Teespring merchandise. Wear your geek with pride. And as always, thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.